Do you want to find out a little bit more about private midwifery practice? Well, stay tuned and watch our Q&A for private midwives that we recorded through a Zoom session last night. I hope you enjoy it. If you want to find out more about private midwifery practice, join me in our workshop coming up at the end of the month, and I'll put the details in the link below. My name is Jane. I'm a midwife educator and the facilitator of our private midwifery workshops. So my name's Jane Palmer, and I've been a private practice midwife now for nearly 26 years. I think it's been quite some time, and it's something I absolutely adore. But I've been teaching how to set up a private practice now for 13 years. Well, ever since we've had Medicare available for midwives. So yeah, it's something I love to do and love to share my experiences with. I also am a lactation consultant, childbirth educator, and I run around teaching other programs like active birth and effective facilitation. And I'm also author as well. So I've written a few books, the latest, which is, I don't know if anybody's seen, is Preparing for Birth Mothers. So it's a lovely book. Anyway, that's enough about me. I'd love to hear from you guys. Maybe introduce yourself and maybe say something you'd like to get out of tonight's session. Cool. Well, maybe Rose, would you mind starting?
Sorry, I'm just getting used to technology.
That's all right.
I'm Rose. I've been a midwife for 18 years. I've previously been in private practice prior to endorsement days. I've now got my endorsement and I've just returned to private practice.
Awesome.
And I'm suddenly inundated with clients, so would just love really some tips, tricks, the things you wish you knew, especially from a time management perspective, and especially tips regarding the Medicare stuff. The practice stuff I'm fine with. It's new to Medicare, new to, I guess, a real business side of things, because prior to Medicare it was so much more relaxed.
It was so much easier, wasn't it? It was
so much easier.
You just kind of put up your shingle and off you went, and as long as you had good support, it was fine. It's really the landscape has changed significantly. And in actual fact, in preparing for this, because I've got the 3-week workshop coming up shortly, and I thought, in preparation for this, I'll just start checking documents and stuff. And I've just learnt the determination has totally changed. And so I was madly trying to read that before, I wasn't even aware that had changed. It's only recently. So, so things change all the time, and there's so many more requirements about what we're supposed to do and the boxes that we've got to tick and stuff. So, So I've got time management, Medicare. What was the other thing, Rose? Sorry, you said third thing, I thought.
Really just any sort of time management and just things you wish you'd known at the start of your practice that might make it easier down the track.
Tips to make it easier.
More so from the business side of things as well.
Business. Not a problem. Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you. All right. So sorry about Danielle.
Sorry, I've got my little one here, so at times I might
that's okay.
It's on and off. Anyway, I've been a midwife since 2017, registered nurse prior, and then we moved rural and just wanted a different option, and for it to benefit myself and get work-life satisfaction. Private midwifery, I think, is the way to go, and to just help women out rural. So I've recently become endorsed, and want some help navigating the Medicare system. And I've got a collaborative agreement, but I just want to know how I can use that to my advantage, and just get a few more things cemented before I actually start. So I'm hoping to start sort of end of the month, definitely next month.
That's great. That's awesome.
So it was great timing doing this.
No, sounds wonderful. Well, thank you. So I've written that down. Okay. So we've done Rose. Is it Lucille? Is that how you say it? Sorry.
Yes, it is. Well done. I came in late, but it feels like we're introducing ourselves.
We're just introducing ourselves. And if you want to share anything you'd like me to cover, I know I've only got kind of an hour and I've kind of got a bit of a set program going on, but I'm very flexible to kind of digress from that and kind of discuss what you guys would like. So, yeah, so maybe just share a little bit about yourself and anything you'd like me to cover.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a midwife for 10 years. I'm hoping to be endorsed by the end of the year. So doing my prescribing this trimester at Griffith. So yeah, in terms of content, I'm just happy to listen to whatever you've got to offer because I'm right at the start of my journey there and I'm just taking it all in to get ready.
Sounds great. No worries. Awesome. Where are we up to? Maybe Bo?
Bo has left a message in the chat. She's just in her car with her kids.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't. I've got multiple windows open. I didn't see it over there. No worries, Bo. I'm 3, so I can't really. But I'm newly endorsed and teach. Okay. Antenatal and postnatal care. But I'd love to learn more about collaborative agreements work and any tips on finding a provider who might make an agreement. All right. So, cool. So. Yeah, that's a difficult one. So when we get to that, we'll talk. Oh, she's disappeared, has she? Oh, she'll pop back. I'm sure she's just dropped out. Yeah, so we'll have a look at how to make those collaborative agreements work best to our abilities. So yeah, oops, here she is.
Can I add something else, Jane? She's standing up. I'd like to know as well about like high caps machines. Like, is it worth doing that to process Medicare and health funds on the spot, or is it better to get the women to then make their own claims? I just want a little bit more of an understanding around that.
Yeah, certainly I can cover that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll talk about it now because I know I'll forget this one. Look, high caps, you've got to look at the costs of these different things. So high caps will charge a credit card fee. I'm not sure of the other expenses involved. I don't have one personally. What I do is I just have an FPOS machine. So the women pay for the visit and I use medical practice software where we just then claim it for them from Medicare. So there's no cost involved with that. A little bit of setup, like learning how to set up, but the companies like Best Practice and Medical Director, and there's some midwifery programs out there that will do it. They've got great help to help set it up. So I do it that way, but I know a lot do high caps. So it might be something worthwhile to consider. The advantage of high caps is, let's say you're a lactation consultant or doing something that's outside of from pregnancy to 6 weeks. So you might do, I don't know, preconception care, you might do a lactation visit, you might do something else. You can then try and claim for their health fund as well. So through high caps, which I can't do through Best Practice software. So you just got to for me, I found the credit card expenses lower if I went directly to the bank than when I originally looked at high caps. But it might well now be quite economical to have a look at. For the women, it's great because particularly if they're coming postnatally or, they're not wanting to claim from, they can, but it's a nice part of the service if we can actually offer that service to them. Has anybody else got an opinion on that? Oh, no. Okay. All right. So Danielle, Sarah, did we do you? I don't think we did. Did we?
No, not yet. So I'm Sarah. I'm an endorsed I've been an endorsed midwife for about 3 years now, but I haven't been able to use it. I'm currently on maternity leave from my midwifery unit manager role. And I am just looking at work-life balance and how things are going to progress after having my little one. And I just don't necessarily, I don't think I want to be the mum anymore, basically.
I can understand that.
But I work in a rural town that has got an amazing group practice, essentially, with our 2 female GP obstetrics.
No.
So
you might be asking where that is, Sarah? What?
Moree.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so
that's wonderful.
it's an informal group practice, but essentially we do antenatal shared care with our GPs, and our women pretty much see our service predominantly, but I'm more interested in looking at going into a private capacity and providing a lactation consultancy, and then branching out and possibly doing a bit of sleep consultancy as well. So it's sort of a whole package, but definitely just feeling quite overwhelmed at the thought of doing it all. And so this is a first step of getting involved in doing it, because I'm really keen on getting into the private practice, because I think it's something our town would really take on.
Maurice, Sarah?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
so
I have been fighting with New South Wales Health to let me actually use my endorsement here within the system, and I've been pushing it up the system quite a bit, because if we could even just use it for basic things, it would take a lot of the load off them. But there's been no reciprocation to my conversations at all. So I want to use my endorsement, and I've got a GP who's prepared to work with me. So yeah, just need to get the ball rolling, and I just find it really overwhelming.
Oh, it is. And it is really big. And what I always say is you just got to take it step by step. And that's when I've put together the private practice course. And it's only like, if we did it face to face, it'd be one day. Because it's online, I thought it's nicer to break it up over 3 weeks. Because it goes from the very beginning of the business stuff, then we look at the midwifery stuff, and then we look at customer service and all the other stuff that comes along with running a business. But you need to kind of just do it one step at a time. Otherwise, it's just too big. It's amazing, Sarah, that you've got that support at Moray, because a lot of I travel a lot, and it's the rural towns I have the biggest trouble with, because the doctors are quite protective of their turf. So
they are quite protective, but I've managed to get the rapport with one GP obs who was quite upset in some regards that I said I was going off work for 12 months to look after my daughter.
Yes.
So, and I've managed to get a reliever in to cover my position, but I think she can see that we've got a very, very interesting demographic of women within our town. From the lower socioeconomic, very large Indigenous community, to very, very wealthy people who refuse to birth in Moree and will go to Brisbane and Sydney. So it's sort of, I can look at it from a perspective of that catchment as well, where I could catch some of those people so they don't have to be driving to Brisbane or Sydney for some of their care, and that's what I'm sort of looking at as well.
Yeah. So really, would you offer an antenatal service as well to go with?
Yeah. And I've actually done all the parenting education here at the hospital as well, so I've sort of provide a bit of that as well.
So you can really work well. I mean, I'll just tell a quick story before I start the presentation. Was many years ago, I was running pregnancy, birth and beyond out of my home, and I had people working for me, and we were looking for a premises, and it happened there was a local medical centre up for lease. And so I decided to use that to run my businesses from and to provide my midwifery care. And there was one GP there, and we ended up building this most amazing family practice, and it all worked really, really well. And it was just made me realise how well we can work together if we have that support, if we have that respect and support. It's just difficult to gain that respect and support in a lot of areas. Metropolitan areas are much easier than rural areas, but as Sarah's found, that you can just find, if you can find that one doctor to start with, and that's how I started. I used Dr. Andrew Pesha, who no longer does it anymore, actually, but him and I had a long relationship through just working through the hospital system. And when I joined private practice, and he's always been very supportive of midwifery models of care, and he was quite willing to support our model. And he went on, and then all the private midwives in Sydney basically started a collaborative relationship with him for those that wanted to have women birth in hospital. And it's kind of gone from there. So it is possible. And there's lots of, I suppose, one of the most amazing things I've found since I've been running this workshop is that when we started, everybody's going, oh, you can't make a living. You can make a wonderful living from private practice, as long as you're careful with your money and don't go out and buy too many flash things, which eats into your profit. But running a business, and you'll be overwhelmed with with people booking, particularly if you're doing home birth. But not everybody chooses to do home birth. Some people choose to become just a lactation, not just a lactation consultant, or just want to offer antenatal and postnatal care, like Sarah said. So there's lots and lots of different ways we can do it. So, and lots of opportunities. Interestingly, there's a practice I recently interviewed, and I hoped to get a bit of a spiel together about them. They're in Perth. And they bulk bill all their services. They do a management fee. I think she said it was about $200. And then they bulk bill every antenatal and postnatal visit. And she reckons it's quite profitable. They have something like 10 midwives working out of their practice now. It's quite amazing. So I will hopefully showcase that as well. Anyway, that's enough. Sorry, been a while since I've run a Zoom from home. So just let me find the correct screen. Yeah. All right. Oh, there we go. Cool. All right. So the few things that I did put up that, what's it like to be in private practice? We will look at, because we're already running out of time. It's 40 minutes to go. What is it like about collaborative agreements? Because that's a tricky one. But I can share with you how I've done that. From when I started to, when I set up a written collaborative agreement, and there's lots of different ways of doing it. Now, working with Medicare item numbers is tricky. The numbers again recently changed, at least I knew about that change. And it's just you've got to work out very carefully how to work with all the different item numbers. I will say with any of these things, like the collaborative agreements, I would recommend downloading the determination so you can read it step by step. And even me, I always go back and read them, even though I've been doing it for so long. And same with Medicare. I mean, I'm pretty familiar with the main Medicare numbers, but not the new ones. I just wanted to mention, as a business thing, considering GST and midwifery practice, and I'll tell you why when I get to that. And I just wanted to touch on the midwifery practice review. So we'll just see how we go. So, sorry, I should have done this before I started. I just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and show respect for the elders past and present. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and contribution to the region on which you are currently standing. And we don't need to introduce myself. I've already said this bit. Get rid of me. All righty. So what's it been like as a private practice midwife? I must say I've had my ups and my downs over the years. I became a midwife specifically to step out into private practice. I had I did not want to work in the hospital system. And for me, it actually started from quite a traumatic birth experience, and I wanted to change the world. Realise you can't do that. You can change the little corner that you work in. So I went, but I had to do nursing because there was no direct entry, obviously, when I first started, and then do my midwifery. And as soon as I could, I stepped out into private practice probably 18 months after I graduated. So which obviously is, well, I'm not going to say it's not a possibility. It does depend on where you live, but in general, you need to have 3 years full time if you're going to get your endorsement. But there are still midwives who just attend births and don't do antenatal and postnatal care, and they're not covered by insurance, but that isn't breaking any rules. That's perfectly fine. There are some practices that employ junior midwives. Now, it's very difficult because obviously they can't get insurance. The whole thing around working as a private midwife is you have to have insurance to meet the Midwifery Board regulations. So if you don't have insurance, you don't meet the standards, and actually can be deregistered actually. But so what you need, let me get my thoughts together. So if you've got a junior midwife that wants to work in a practice, that practice has to have some sort of practice insurance to cover her for indemnity insurance. Now, I know in Queensland, there's some practices that use the nurses union and reckon that covers them. I don't know if it does or not. I haven't looked into the legalities. I'm pretty sure there's a practice in Melbourne that employs midwives as well. And so they've obviously been able to get a package of practice insurance. So do you know about MIGA, the company that does the midwifery insurance for professional indemnity? Some of you may know them, some of you may not. But MIGA is the only company in Australia that now does it. And MIGA does offer a practice insurance, so it's worthwhile maybe if that's something you're considering, you could do it that way. Also, if you're employed by somebody, so like by a GP obstetrician or an obstetrician, you could still use your Medicare endorsement that way as well. So, yeah. But so I started, as we said, it was nice and easy in the beginning. You didn't have to do anything. You know, when I started, what was it, 26, 27 years ago, you just put out your shingle and off you went. I was lucky I actually had a collaborative agreement at that time, would you believe, with an obstetrician. And I managed to gain visiting rights at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, but that was just before the big insurance collapse, which happened in the early 90s, late 90s, somewhere around there. It must have been late 90s, the insurance collapse happened, and we lost our insurance at that time. So, yeah. So it's had its ups and downs. So I've worked in a group practice and then privately and then in a group practice, and currently about, I think it's 18 months ago, I stopped attending births because, you know, being on call all those many years, I thought it was time that I put my energy into education rather than being on call. But I still love it, and I could not work at, well, I could, and I do work at Westmead a couple of days, but that's in a management role with childbirth education. So I quite enjoy that. But as on the full midwife, I think I'd find it very, very challenging. So cool. All right. So, hey there, Carly. All right. Now, collaboration. So, who said they had collaboration? It was Sarah, was it? I've forgotten now. Who had the collaboration agreement? Yeah.
No, not Sarah.
It was Danielle, was it?
Yeah, I've got one as Jane.
Yeah, so what sort of collaborative agreement have you got?
So the doctor works in Billawilla, and he also has his own like private GP practice.
Yep.
And so I've just got like a antenatal postnatal agreement with him. Yep. That he will see my women, and he was very kind and said I can call him anytime, and then he will guide me whether I need to send them to the hospital or private practice or refer them to their birthing hospital.
Yep.
Because rurally where I am, Billawilla, where he works from, is currently on bypass.
Oh, okay. Where is that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Where geographically?
So I live in Theodore, so Billawilla is an hour from me, and then I'm like 2 hours from Gladstone or 2 hours from Rockhampton, like in Queensland. Right. So yeah, so Billawilla is very low risk. Not many women meet their criteria. Okay. And then Gladstone's currently on bypass as well. So a lot of the women are birthing in Rockhampton. So they're travelling at least 2 hours or so to birth. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear Gladstone's still on bypass. It was last time I run a private practice workshop. So
yeah, I think they plan on bringing it back up and running shortly. They will be well before Billawilla is. So yeah, I've got an antenatal postnatal agreement with him, and so I basically just wanted to know through that whether I still need GP referrals or whether I don't.
Look, it depends on how your agreement is written. Is the doctor happy to cover you for all the women that come through your practice?
Basically, and it's a very open thing. He's just happy. Any pregnant woman in pregnancy up to 6 weeks post-birth, he's happy for me to refer them to him. Yeah.
So you refer them to him for a visit as well, do you?
If they, according to the ACM guidelines.
Oh, I see. If they've got a problem.
If they've got a problem, if they need a doctor review or, things need to be escalated, he's quite happy to review them.
Yeah. So I think that's the best way to have a collaborative. It's something that's really open. The one I originally had with Dr. Andrew Pesha was quite descriptive, but he was nervous to start with, and I get that. And so I had to negotiate quite a bit about what constitutes a long labour that I have to call him in, for instance, or what constitutes, and that became laxer and laxer and laxer as we got to know each other. But yeah, so we had very specific things, but there's nothing, all it says is a written agreement. It doesn't say what actually is in that agreement. That's very much between yourself and whoever that particular doctor is. So yeah. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention with like I've just looked at the new determination very quickly. I didn't get much time before this started, but it looks like it's pretty much the same. So they're saying an obstetric specified doctor or practitioner or whatever, there's a particular term in the new determination, but basically it means either an obstetrician or a medical practitioner who provides obstetric services. And so that could be a GP obstetrician, but you might have a local care GP. Anyone that offers pre and postnatal care pretty much is providing obstetric services, but if you've got someone like that, you've got to still make sure you've got very clear pathways of what happens if there is something that comes up with the ACN guidelines. So, you know, for me, if I don't know, I had a GP refer someone up postnatally, which I get quite a lot now, because I'm a lactation consultant. So a lot of the doctors, if they've got someone with breastfeeding problems, to refer to me now. But if I've got, you know, a real problem, that can't be dealt with oral antibiotics, obviously, then my pathway would be to refer them into an emergency department at the local hospital or whatever. So you've just still got to have your pathways if they don't provide a complete obstetric service. But you can, by the guidelines, it looks like you can still use a GP referral as one of your pathways. So you've got your written agreement, you've got your direct referral. And does anybody know any of the other pathways that you can use? Oops, Rose, sorry, you've got your hand up there.
In South Australia, we don't have a single obstetrician who will collaborate with anyone.
Not now you've got Brian Pete left.
He's gone, so it's always been pretty bad here in South Australia.
He was my very first collaborative obstetrician.
He's amazing. He's still fielding unofficial questions for us, which is great, but it doesn't meet any sort of guideline. So we're getting around that with the women get a GP referral, and we're booking them into wherever their local hospital is. Yes. Except for one of our local hospitals will not accept any home birth women. That's a whole nother issue we're dealing with at the moment.
Is that legal though? Are they a public hospital?
They are a public hospital. Yeah. So we're it's a real nightmare for us. So we're getting around that by booking the women in, sending in their maternity care plan. Yes. So we're meeting our MIGA guidelines as well.
Yeah. So that's the way you do it. So if you've got, there was a particular Sydney hospital like that. They didn't want the women to book in, and we're going, but the guidelines kind of say, and when you look at it, it's actually the only requirement for you is that you send in all that woman's details and they acknowledge receiving it. And then the particular person I was speaking to on the phone says, well, now what do you want me to do with it? And I said, I don't really care. I just need your acknowledgement. And you tick that box. So
it's just unfortunate that when you do have a woman that pops up with a category B, C, that we just have to ring the on-call reg or whoever, and it's so far from ideal.
It is. And I don't think that they realise having it like that is actually creating very poor care. Whereas, because I like this slide where the dog's eating the cat, because it's kind of like how I felt. But what I discovered after working with Dr. Pesci for quite some time was he didn't support home birth. He said, I don't want to see any of your home birth clients. And I said, that's okay. We just started with the hospital ones. And then he said, all right, maybe the multips having home births. In the end, we ended up having VBACs at home. Not that he endorsed that in any way, shape or form. We would go in there. He would discuss the risks. We would sign the what is it now called, the record of understanding, and leave it at that. And it worked really, really well. And when we had women who were high risk that would potentially choose home birth or free birth, we now had a pathway into the hospital system where we could continue care, and they felt really supported and were much more likely to go in necessarily. So when we can have those good agreements, it does work really well. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, you're doing the right thing. The GPs, and as long as you've got that other pathway in there, I think, yeah. There's a couple of others. There's one that says, you know, you've notified an obstetric doctor that you're caring for a particular woman, and you have to document multiple steps, like it's not officially a written agreement. I've never personally used that one because it seemed quite lengthy and arduous to follow the steps. And now we can also have an agreement with a particular hospital as well, which is absolutely wonderful. I don't know of anybody that's achieved that, but that's just because I haven't been out talking with people since that's come into play. Does anybody know of anybody that's got an agreement with a particular hospital? No.
We're struggling to even get admitting rights in South Australia.
Sorry, you do have some though, don't you, Rose?
We've just got one. Sue McFarlane's just got hers, but she's been at that hospital for over 20-something.
Yeah.
For 20-something years, and it's been taking her years. Like, it's so bad. Yeah. So
and being employed was another one. So by an entity that employs obstetric doctors is another way. So there's it's very complicated. So that's why I always say get the determination and read it. Look, it does look a bit like gobbledygook, but you just read it step by step. So yes. Sorry, someone wants. Oh, so Bo, okay, yeah, you could. Sorry, Bo's just asking, does anybody know if you could have a collaborative agreement with a GP obs who's not in your city? I think you probably could if they were willing to have that sort of agreement, because you've still got that pathway, and then you'd still have to, you know, obviously make sure you had something in place in case they needed emergency treatment or, you know, an into the local hospital system. So I don't know if anybody's read The Birth Wars. I read this a number of years ago and I got quite annoyed, actually. She attacked midwives right at the beginning, but you've got to keep reading because there are two sides to this, and it's the women that are getting caught in the middle. And if we can have those really good collaborative relationships, it's a win-win. It's a win for us. It's a win for the women. It's a win for the hospital system. And I've seen massive changes in some hospitals that have gone ahead and done this. Oops. Oh, there we go. So yeah, I just see it as a really good thing for collaborative care, but it's just really, really difficult to get those collaborative agreements. Now, before I move on, did anybody have any more questions on collaboration?
So just to confirm, Jane, so with the agreement, a written agreement with the GP obstetrician, basically you can the women can come to you without a GP referral. They can just enter your service and you're good to go.
Yep. And all you do is just somewhere in a notes document collaborative agreement with your doctor, and that's it.
Yes.
All you have, it's lovely and easy. So when I ran that GP practice, because we had doctors who did share care, and I was employed by there, that I was covered and I didn't have to have any referrals. It just made my life so much easier. So
yeah, thanks, Jane.
Not a problem. Awesome. Okay.
I have a question. I'm Carly from Queensland.
Hey, Carly.
I'm in a town, so I'm in Gladstone, and I've just started up a private practice in Gladstone. Obviously, we are on bypass, but there's still obstetricians at the hospital.
Yes.
The hospital, we're just worried that the obstetricians that are there are going to say no to collaborating, but being a public hospital, they can't do that. Is that right?
Yeah, they still can say no, unfortunately. Okay. But you just remember, I don't know how much you caught, but yeah, you can have a GP do a referral for antenatal and postnatal care. Because if you don't have visiting rights anywhere, you don't need a referral for birth. You only need it for antenatal and postnatal care.
Okay.
Because the women are obviously going to, where are they going, Rockhampton or somewhere?
Yeah, well, we're home birthing.
Oh, well, yeah, so you're home birthing, and then if you have a transfer, what do you do then?
Yeah, so we go to Gladstone first, and then Gladstone would decide if they would keep them here to birth them, because they have 24-hour obstetric emergency care, or they would get transferred to Rockhampton.
Okay, yeah, so you've got that pathway. So I would personally, if you couldn't get, I would work on the GPs, definitely, on the obstetricians.
Yeah, so
Definitely
like I've
through-
worked with them before, so it's
Mm.
just getting, well, some of them. So it's just trying to get them on board, really, which we know is quite difficult to do.
Yeah, it can be. All you need is one to start with, and then the others come around. But
Yeah,
to get around the problem initially, and that's what I did when I first started, no one would do a collaborative agreement. And I even had really good relationships with other obstetricians, and they refused. And so we had it really tough in the beginning trying to get around it. But
so when we send that booking in to the hospital for the like the acknowledgement that they have received it, does it have to have an obstetrician's name on it?
No.
So once we get the receipt that it's been received, then we're covered.
That's right. You've done that pathway, you've landed that, and I do one step further. So when I do the maternity care plan, I also send that in as well.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
We send them in as well.
Yeah.
We don't really, I think occasionally someone will get a return acknowledgement. It's rare that it actually happens though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
there's not much we can do about that.
And get that fax confirmation. It's about the best you can do sometimes. So
okay. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much.
No worries. Awesome. Now Medicare. Oh my goodness. This is so what I'm going to say here is I might actually I might put the Medicare. I just got the section 8 of the Medicare medical benefit schedule booklet, because that's the section that has the midwifery stuff in it. And then I went through section 8 and got rid of all the pages that had nothing to do with midwives. And I thought that might be helpful, because it's really challenging working through each of the item numbers. Now, did you have specific questions in relation to working with Medicare? No?
And I wanted to know, you said something earlier that made me think maybe I've not got a good grasp, but I thought we can only really use one item number at a time, but are you saying you can actually use multiple?
No, per visit, you've got to choose the most appropriate item code.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
No, so you can't, unfortunately. Yeah, so it's really important to just follow it very carefully, because Medicare do audit from time to time. Once you become endorsed and practice, I don't know if anybody's done any stuff with MIGA, the Medical Insurance Group Australia. They do risk management stuff, and I was watching one of their things on Medicare. It was all on doctors, but about the proof that you've got to provide, making sure you document very carefully the length, because they're all time visits, so you've got to document the length of the visit as well. So, if it's a short visit, you document the time, and make sure if it's a long antenatal or a long postnatal visit that you document it, it's greater than the 40 minutes. So that's one thing to be really aware of. And then you have to go through each one of the Medicare item codes. So look, there's multiple there, but generally you've got your first one, which is your booking appointment, which from memory is an 82110. Is that right? Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm late.
Yeah,
so it's late.
It is that one.
Yeah. So that's your first one. And then generally you just use your antenatal, because it's rarely under 40 minutes, is it really? So you've got under the 40 minutes. Actually, I might just stop sharing, if I can quickly hang on. Or maybe
I actually, when I was first wrapping my head around the Medicare stuff, I did find it really beneficial to, as boring as it is, read the Medicare description for each code. It does have the description under it, and I did find that helpful to wrap my head around it all.
Yeah, it really does. And actually, before I go any further, I'll put it in here. How do I put a file? There we go, file. And from my computer. So I'll put it in here so you can all take it away with you. Where am I doing? I think I've just put it into, whoops, Q&A, and then, oh goodness. MBS, no, that's the, there we go, section 8. There you go. All right, so I put it in the chat. It'll take a bit to upload, and then I'll try and open it. My computer is not liking me tonight. It's very slow. So, go to Q&A. Come on, open up. And there's section 8. So it's just taking a minute. It doesn't like me opening multiple files while I'm talking to you. Bring them over here. There you come. All right. So yeah, so I'll quickly run through them. How are we going time-wise? I know we're good. Okay. So I'll just get past it. I just left all the descriptive stuff in there because that gives you a lot of really relevant information on billing and what you can do. Really interestingly, it says you can't do telehealth, yet we have telehealth item codes still in the thing. So I definitely put through telehealth or video conferencing still through. I haven't had any problems so far. But maybe I need to read the rules again, because as I said, they change all the time. Recently, Medicare, I'm just flipping through to the, I wanted to mention the safety net. This is something, it's good to know when you're helping women make a decision about how much out of pocket they'll be. So safety net's put in place if they've had lots of out of hospital health expenses for the year. So particularly if you have women who have IVF, they often have exceeded the safety net threshold, or they've got other health problems, so they may actually exceed the safety net. So if you live in, so if you've got clients that are quite, on benefits, for instance, their safety net is quite low. So if they actually have out-of-pocket health expenses, they'll hit the safety net and then they'll be able to claim extra per visit back. So it's actually beneficial for them. But for the general population, I think we now have to have, I think it's $2,200 and something out of pocket before the safety net kicks in. But even once the safety net kicks in, so let's say, I don't know, you charge $150 for a visit and they get back $47 from Medicare. So that between the 47 and 150 is their out of pocket. They may only get an extra $20 back, but it's still more money back. So it's good to know about the Medicare safety net. It's a bit too much to go into tonight, but it's in here. And if I go down, whoops. Sorry, I've gone too fast. Okay. Don't tell me I knocked on. Oh, here we go. All right, so it has, no, that's the collaborative relationships. Sorry, I'm just clicking too fast. So we have the safety net, and then we have all the, and if I've not put it in here, I'm going to be very cross with myself. So we've got, here we go. We're starting to have some telehealth. So they still have telehealth items, but they're the same. We've got a short antenatal attendance up to 40 minutes and a long, and you have one for video and one for telephone, and the same, you've got a short antenatal for short postnatal and a long postnatal as well. And then you've got your booking visit, you've got your antenatal visit short and long. You also then have your maternity care plan. So there are now changed rules around the maternity care plan. So that's where the women you can claim, if you bulk bill, I think the bulk bill amount's about 270 thereabouts for a 90-minute appointment. And there's all these criteria in there, but the women have to now be greater than 28 weeks. You have to see them at least twice before you can claim it. And if they're also seeing an obstetrician, and you don't have a collaborative arrangement, they may charge their maternity care plan and the women won't be able to. So, but for those of you, sorry, Danielle, you're going to say something?
Sorry, I was just going to ask, so around that,
yep.
We therefore not allowed to claim unless we're the birthing hospital, or even if, because we're obviously still going to do that appointment with the woman, even if she's got birth elsewhere.
I have seen others say that they rang Medicare and said, Medicare says you have to be birthing the woman. You go through the rules. There's nowhere in the rules that says that. That's just somebody's opinion. I always go back to what is physically written down, and it doesn't say that you're going to be with them for the actual birth, as far as in anything I've read. Has anybody seen anything different? Because I certainly still do the maternity care plan. So, for instance, I'm seeing somebody at the moment, continuity antenatally. She's going to the local hospital to birth, and then I'll see her postnatally, and we've done a maternity care plan. So, all right. And look, and now we've got there's now a new out of hospital management to this particular one here, but this is only for women who are birthing in hospital and you're not going to be handing over care. So you can't be handing over care to the hospital or to an obstetrician. You actually, you yourself or a midwife in your practice has to continue care to claim that. And the same with all the birthing item codes. They are all for women birthing in a hospital as a private patient, and you're the lead care provider, or your colleagues are lead care provider. Does that make sense? And then postnatally, it's the same. You've got long or short postnatal visits, but you've got to make sure you don't do too many because Medicare will pick that up. So, but it just has to be clinically relevant. I typically see women 6, 7, 8 times postnatally and haven't had any problems. And then the final item code is the 6-week visit. So that's a visit done between 6 to 7 weeks, and it's a smaller amount of money like antenatally. But again, you've just got to go through each one of these things and just read every point to make sure you're sticking to the rules. So does that make sense, or is that a bit too overwhelming? Oops.
I do have one more question, Jane.
Yeah, sure.
Management fee that midwives charge. I don't know too much about that. So is that to cover the excess time that you're spending on chasing results and phone calls and referrals? And is that
So
what that is for?
how you choose to bill them. So for me, I might offer a package of care. So I've now put together packages of care. So let's say it's an antenatal postnatal care package. I'll have a management fee of, depending if they're coming to my clinic or I'm going to their home. So currently I'm charged a woman $2,000 for her complete care, and every service I see her, I bulk bill her, and I'm going to her home antenatal and postnatally for all her visits. And that's just the agreement we had. Or you could choose to charge just individually for each visit. The woman pays and then claims it back from Medicare. Or you could choose a small management fee. So that's what a lot of obstetricians do. But if you charge, sorry, I don't want to get too complicated, but if you charge a management fee, the woman can't claim that for anything. But if you charge her, let's say, all the care, I don't know, say for home birth midwife, let's say $6,000, and then you divvy that up, it costs this much each antenatal visit, this much for the birth, and this much for each postnatal visit, they may be able to hit the safety net and get more money back from Medicare, making it more affordable. Does that make sense?
If it's helpful, I've just been going backwards and forwards with how I've been wanting to manage it as well, because there's pros and cons to both sides.
There is.
I've sort of decided I might just give women the option as well, because like you say, if for some families paying that bigger fee up front might not be manageable, whereas if they pay less money up front and I bulk bill their appointments, then I'm happy to do that for them. Whereas some women, they would rather get that little bit extra back from Medicare, and they might make that safety net more beneficial for them. So I've sort of decided to have 2 packages.
I did so many packages. I think I've confused them, so I'm going to go back and have another look at it. You want to keep it relatively simple. But yeah, I like when I did home births or just births, we just had a blanket fee. We divvied it up, and then after the episodes of care, we divvied each, made an item code for each one. For the birth or an antenatal postnatal. If it was a home birth, we'd still charge a fee, but obviously that wouldn't have a Medicare item code on it. It'd just be.
Jane, is there a time after the episode how long you've got to claim that back from Medicare?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, not as far as I'm aware. I've done it many months down the track if I've been behind, which is an
I'm just thinking, can I just, if I'm bulk billing, can I, when I've, for example, discharged the woman at 6 weeks postnatal, can I do all of her pregnancy?
If you haven't claimed anything from Medicare. I don't know how. I tried to have a look to see if Medicare would not allow that. I haven't seen anything. I just do it very quietly. But if they've already claimed, no, you wouldn't be able to.
No, it's more so just if I'm doing all of their care, I'm just not sure if there was a time frame from, say, if I'm claiming her 20-week appointment.
So I've done it up to, there might be a time frame, but I've done nearly up to 12 months.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. All right, I just quickly wanted to mention, because this is just the business side of things. There's lots of stuff, and I go through everything step by step in my workshop. But there's a whole lot of things about we've got to be registered for tax when we run any sort of business. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not to be registered for GST. You have to be registered if you earn more than $75,000 a year, and that's income. That's like just money in. It's not how much profit. It's just 75,000. But I just want you to just something to consider when you do run a business is that midwifery services don't attract GST in the values. So any health service like an antenatal visit or postnatal visit or birth care does not attract GST. Other services such as childbirth classes do, but pretty much no midwifery services attract GST. And everything we purchase for our midwifery service, be it your phone, the midwifery supplies, even your car expenses all have GST in them. And if you don't register for GST, you can't actually claim, you can't actually claim that portion back. So it's well worth registering for GST, even if you don't earn 75,000. That's just my opinion. You probably need to speak to an accountant. But for me, I used to get money back every quarter from the government because I claim all my expenses back that all had GST in the price. Yet I didn't have to pay the government any GST because midwifery doesn't have GST in the price. So that was just something to consider.
Especially setting up practice, that I hadn't thought of GST. I just thought, it's exempt, not worrying about that. But that's a good point, especially setting up is costing a lot of money.
Yeah. So if you're starting a business, you haven't started to trade, you can't claim that. So you've got to actually have some money starting to come in and then buy your stuff. You can claim that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So setup costs, you have to pay. You can't claim those back. But yeah, so it's just something to be considered, because I used to like getting my money back every quarter. And I submit my own business activity statements. It's really easy as long as everything's entered properly into the system. All right. And very quickly, I don't know, I put midwifery practice review. It doesn't seem to be so much of an issue. And I quickly looked at the rules again and it's no longer, we used to have to do a midwifery practice review to become endorsed. It's not part of the endorsement process now. Whoops, who else is coming in? Whoops. Yeah, so, but it's now, when I looked it up in the quality and safety guidelines, it's a professional practice review program. It's still in the safety and quality guidelines, so it's still something we have to show evidence of having done every 3 years once we start practicing. But hang on, I'm just going to move you guys across my writing. I'm just going to move you out of my way. Oops, looks like everybody from Queensland's coming late. Okay, all right, all good. So pardon me. So the midwifery practice review, according to the guidelines, just basically means that you've done some sort of formal peer or case review program that may include something like more maternal morbidity or mortality meetings, some sort of quality insurance, some sort of clinical audit. You could do that with colleagues, or other sorts of meetings dealing with practice review or risk management. So as long as you've got some sort of process documented, you actually meet this requirement, but you must have something like that actually documented. Does that make sense? Has anybody done any sort of practice review? No? Okay. Awesome. Sorry, my little mouse does not want to go forward. All right. All right, so the workshop, some of you are signed up for, but if you're interested in signing up, I pretty much go from step by step through it. You get a workbook, and you also get access to Moodle, which is I will be changing that very shortly actually, but for the moment it's still Moodle, which is an educational platform. And I've got every single document you could possibly need to set up private practice all in there, and you have access to download that after the course. But we'll go through like setting it up, doing all your marketing, which is really important, and doing it so you're meeting AHPRA's guidelines. looking at midwifery business, gaining the skills and lots more. Now, if you wanted to join, I've done a special discount, and for those of you that have signed up, if you could just send me an email, because I'm offering 20% off if you book the 3 modules. So if you've already booked and only got the 15, just email me and I'll organise a refund. I'll just put my email in the chat. Oops, here we go. Okay, so yeah. So if you want to do that, yeah, just use the coupon code Your Private Practice DS, so YPPDS, and it will work until tomorrow. So yeah. So did anybody have any other questions before I sign off? Oh, sorry, Bo, you said you believe it's 2 years. What's that for the private practice? For the midwifery review? Anyway, so did anybody else have any other questions or anything they wanted to ask me before I sign off? Oh, okay, to claim Medicare rebate. Okay. Oh, yeah, you might be right. Actually, I'm going to go and look it up after the workshop. So how long to claim from Medicare? Yeah. So anybody else have any other questions? No? Well, I hope you found that somewhat helpful. I feel like I've overwhelmed you. I want to share so much information. I've got so much to share, and yeah. Will this be yes, Danielle, it'll be available as a recording. I've been recording it. Okay, and yeah. And where can you read more about the workshop? Just let me, I will, if I just share my screen again. Whoops, sorry. If you just scan, just take a photo of that QR code, and that'll take you straight to the workshop. Sorry, I meant to say that. All right. You got it? Okay. Excellent. Well, it's lovely meeting you all, and I hope to see you in the workshop, but if not, I'll try and join in the private practice on Facebook a bit more. I just don't get enough time to do everything, but yeah. And keep an eye on, actually, I'm trying to put up on my Instagram account little helpful hints. I'm setting up a guide for private midwives on Instagram, and my personal Instagram is this one. It's just in the chat. So anyway, thank you so much, and I hope to see you at the private practice. All right, see you later.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Jane.
Bye.